the topics we have been learning so far in the semester. To start off with, I'll start off with colonialism and settler colonialism. When I was first introduced to these ideas, I understood that colonialism was the time when the indigenous people were colonized, and the colonizers were not just forcing upon their religion and making them do certain things to lose their identity as a community, but it came to a point where settler colonialism occurred and they were kicked out, and it was made sure that there was no evidence left on that indigenous people were the ones that started this nation and were the first people to actually be on this nation. It was kind of a surreal feeling that I felt as a student, as a learner, because throughout my educational experience, I have learned that this was not as important, or that this history of our nation was made up of lies. Like, for example, when we learned about like the Columbus being like the first person to come here, when in reality the people before here need to be more acknowledged and talked about. In one of the readings that was titled Traditions of Education and Resistance, I got a better understanding on how the U.S. government and Christian churches supported this violence, and it was kind of sad because I grew up obviously going to a Christian church, and I learned that these Native Americans were being kidnapped and being forced to leave behind their native background, and now it's very hard for them to try to get it back and continue to grow as like a community. And yeah, that was overall everything that I learned during the colonialism and settler colonialism period of like our lessons. And I feel like I have learned to understand their struggles, but also have evolved as a person, because now I know that it is important to address and share the stories of the indigenous people and really raise awareness to bringing their communities back. And this is because it is their home. The second thing that we kind of were learning about was on racism and white supremacy. For racism, I was going to talk about the 4 agreements of courageous conversation. That was the reading, or like the part of a reading that I would like to bring about on this discussion. And it's because on this reading I learned how important it is for educators to learn different ways on how to educate students. This happens because racism can be such a harsh topic, since many people come from different backgrounds. People experience racism to an extreme level, while others experience racism in a low level. And it's very important for teachers to really know how to engage with their students, but also make sure to incorporate that everyone comes from different struggles. And that was one thing that I learned about racism and from like our readings. And then as for race overall, I was also able to learn on how poverty is formed just based upon the way you look, or the way you look as a person, whether that is the skin color, or the way your facial structure is shaped, anything like that's physical in appearance. And then that will bring me to my next discussion, which is on white supremacy. On white supremacy, I felt it a little more as a individual myself, because I know that when white supremacy is brought up upon, there is this idea that being white and like looking a certain way will bring you a better future, and you get to have that privilege that's already there because you're white. And a video that I was gonna bring up about was on our Macklemore white privilege video, where we saw like the music video, and a key word that was in his music video was gentrification. And I think that was really important, because giving an example of myself, in the city that I'm living in, it slowly is becoming gentrified, and I feel like that's a very big idea on why on having white privilege and supremacy, and that's because they are taking over like small cities that are from low income areas and turning them into a place that's filled with just people that have money. And I've seen that with like my school getting an upgrade on how their like territory is like upgraded on like houses that low income like families around my neighborhood don't or can't afford and live. So that's just like the word that really stuck out to me on that song. There was also about like a verse that said the white boy just joining the trend for an N, which is the N word. And I feel like that is another thing that's very upon that. While it's shown that white people hate a lot on black people, they're still saying the harsh slur that we know as the N word, and they can say it simply as a joke or as it even being a threat towards a black person, exactly, or even thrown out there without care, when in reality the N-word does have like a struggle behind it and a story to it that a lot of people don't know about. And I think it's just really important for us to address it to other people and make sure that just bringing in these conversations can help everyone learn and become more educated as a community. Then I will be talking about the last section that we went over in this half semester so far, and that was basically on the Native American, Indigenous studies, the African American studies, the Asian American Pacific Islander studies, and then the Chicano and Latinx studies. I know that we had learned this throughout several of like our weeks in this course, and overall I feel like this section was huge in showing the different struggles that these communities faced. I feel like these studies are basically groups that are formed so that within each group they have the same type of people, and the same type of people that they can relate to with their struggles, with anything that is happening around with them. For example, the Asian American Pacific Islander studies, I was gonna bring up on one of our videos. It was titled "A Conversation with Asian Americans on Race," and basically like a quote that they had said is that a parent told their child, "I can tell you're Korean over the phone." And basically this message was that the Korean parent didn't want their Korean child to sound Korean over the phone because they were in America, and in America, if you talk with an accent, that means you don't belong there. And there was just many examples on how Asians and how Asian Americans get treated by being discriminated on the way they talk, on the way they look. For example, there's many instances where I have myself has seen people say like things about simply their eye shape or anything like that. And then as for African Americans, it is still a struggle that they go through today, trying to fight back for their rights, as you know, they used to be slaves, and trying to get that image away from them, and still having the struggles as I talked about before with just being discriminated as well. Then overall it was really important as a student and as a individual for me to learn all of this so far. I feel like it's really opened up my brain overall to get a better understanding that there are many different stories that are not talked about and addressed, and it's important for classes like this to be taught about for other students, so that they will realize the truth of why awareness is important for these communities, especially coming from one myself, which is obviously the Latino community. And yeah, thank you.